everyone. Clinton Griffiths in the Farm Journal newsroom on a mid-Monday, trying to keep you up to date on what's happening in the latest with this coronavirus issue around the world. We've got news that seems to be breaking each and every day by the hour. So we thought, you know what, why not try to pool our resources, get some folks together, and kind of fill you in on what's happening each and every day about midday, 12 Central here. More than 300,000 cases of COVID-19 have now been reported by the WHO. We just got an update from the CDC here in the U.S. We're at 33,404 cases here in the U.S. Total deaths now at 400. So it continues to expand. China, Italy, and the U.S. now the three leading countries as far as cases goes. Of course, the president doing some tweeting yesterday saying he wants to ease some social distancing after 15 days and saying at the end of that 15-day period, we're going to go make a decision as to which way we want to go. Of course, we're watching this as the markets continue to sell off. The Dow now at the same place where it started when President Trump took office. The Surgeon General coming out and saying it's going to get bad. Of course, as those tests get out and dispersed and more testing ramps up, we expect our cases to continue to go higher. Michigan, Indiana, both ordering folks to stay home unless an industry is considered critical. Of course, agriculture considered one of those critical industries right now. Former presidential candidate, Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar, announcing that her husband has tested positive for coronavirus, as has Senator Rand Paul. Klobuchar saying that her husband started feeling bad, started coughing, eventually started coughing up blood, and is now in the hospital. He has pneumonia. He's on oxygen, but not on a ventilator at this time. We're going to get to some other news happening in Washington right now. Senators meeting. They're working on a plan to provide emergency for the economy that's been stalled here in Congress. Top Trump administration officials and congressional leaders are struggling to finalize a nearly $2 trillion economic rescue package. Part of that package being proposed in the Senate may include another round of payments under the Market Facilitation Program. The legislation currently would make available up to $50 billion to farmers through the Commodity Credit Corporation. That's the account USDA uses to make trade aid payments. The stimulus package would also authorize the CCC to provide aid to livestock producers, while the money replenishes the borrowing authority. It gives the president the option of providing it. Now, demand at the grocery store for beef sent box of beef prices higher. Now, Tyson's Food telling cattle feeders that it's adding $5 per hundredweight to live cattle this week. Getting a lot of feedback on social media of this story right here. The increase being added to the base cash price this week. Gary Mickelson, Tyson Foods Director of Media Relations, telling drovers the one-time premium is an effort to demonstrate the company's commitment to cattle suppliers. And in a statement saying, quote, as an American company supporting the agricultural backbone of this country, it's imperative during this national state of emergency, we not only support our customers, but our cattle supplier partners as well by ensuring the long-term sustainability of the beef business, end quote. The announcement sending cattle prices higher to start the week. And of course, restaurants, they rely on those beef and poultry products. Officials are starting to weigh in on the impact the coronavirus will have on that business. The National Restaurant Association estimating that restaurants and the food service industry could see a $225 billion loss. That's if they remain shut down over the next 3 months because of the pandemic. The association writing a letter to the president asking the administration to support its restaurant recovery plan, also included in that economic stimulus package. Now, it would include some financial relief, loans, insurance options for impacted small businesses. There would also be some federal loan program equal to the lost revenue, tax breaks, and more. The restaurant industry is estimating that up to 7 million people will lose their jobs in the next 3 months, nearly all of them service workers. One restaurant owner out in California is saying that stay-home order to fight the virus changed the entire industry in that state in 1 second. Goldman Sachs estimating 2.25 million Americans filed jobless claims in the first week of the virus. So let's bring in Joe Vaclavik of Standard Grain now. And Joe, as we digest what's going on, not only with the health of our nation and the coronavirus, but we start to look at the health of our markets and the economic impacts. Commodities this week moving, for the most part, in a little bit different direction.
Yeah, we've got a lot of different things going on and a lot of things that are not necessarily even related to the virus. I would say the biggest thing impacting the corn market here is the ethanol situation, which has been driven by that increase in oil production from the Saudis. That's a huge deal for the corn market. I believe it's a much bigger deal than anything related to the virus. It just so happened that both of those things really sort of peaked or came about in a very short time frame. Really in the span of days, we have both of those stories emerge as being big factors. You look at other markets like the soybean market and the wheat market, both of which have rallied sharply. There is talk about logistics issues with South America, that the virus could maybe put port workers out of work. There could be a strike or closures of ports. I think in China, they're still having issues unloading cargo. So there's been a shortage of meal and of soybeans in China. In regard to the wheat, Russia's having some issues. They've got record all-time high domestic prices of wheat in Russia, mainly because of a big currency collapse there. So there's a lot of things going on here. I don't know that I've ever been involved in these markets and seen more moving pieces and more pieces of big news to really drive this stuff in such a short time span.
Yeah, it is really interesting. We look at cotton. Cotton's at a fresh 10-year low today, but you look over at the livestock, and most of the livestock contracts are limit up today. What's driving the livestock side of things?
Well, I think part of it is that the market finally figured out that the demand for the products like boxed beef, like pork, even like poultry, the demand for those products hasn't gone away. As a matter of fact, short term, it's increased drastically. We've seen the boxed beef market just surge higher. We've seen poultry prices and pork prices strong, and that may be short-lived. The consumer may be stocking up here, but the restaurant business is essentially out of business for the time being. So we're kind of in flux here. I don't know how long these high prices stay around, but for the moment, the cattle market, the hog market, kind of trying to catch up to where the cash market has been going.
We talked last week, at the end of last week, about some sales. We did have some export sales that kind of caught everyone's attention. Do we expect more of that this week, or is it anyone's guess at this point?
Well, that's a big question. The big one is the corn sale to China, and we haven't seen anything like that in a while. It amounted to about 30 million bushels. That's not enough to put a dent in the balance sheet when it comes to corn. It's a positive headline. It's great news, but we need to see a lot more of it. You got to remember that 30 million bushel sale occurred at a time when analysts are scratching off 100 million, 200 million, 300 million bushels of demand via the ethanol industry. So that 30 million in a vacuum doesn't do a whole lot. Is it the tip of the iceberg and we start to see more sales to China? That would be the optimistic view.
What's the connection here between the meal market and what's happening in soybean meal, because that seems to keep going up, and what's happening in ethanol and probably less DDGs available?
Well, in ethanol, I mean, the big thing is that the price of ethanol is $1 a gallon. The profitability for ethanol producers is just not there. So in the country, what you've seen is drastically reduced basis levels in a lot of areas where ethanol plants have just totally backed off their bids, and that kind of makes its way through the system. So you've seen reduced demand because that ethanol bid just isn't there the way it was even just a few weeks ago. And that all ties back to the Saudi situation. When it comes to meal, meal is what they feed hogs in China. And in China, supposedly, there's some sort of shortage going on domestically, and we're hoping we can fill that hole. Now, do we start to export a whole bunch of meal or soybeans to China anytime soon? It wouldn't be normal to do that this time of year, but this is an unprecedented situation. And again, the virus and its impact on what happens in South America with their export program for beans and for meal is kind of an unknown here.
Well, let's go ahead and bring in Margie Eckelkamp. Now, she's works as the editor of our Ag Pro publication. She's also been talking to a lot of those ag retailers out there. And Margie, one of the things that we've been discussing is making sure as we prepare for this plant scenario this spring, as we start to ramp up and prepare and start getting planters rolling across the country, are we going to be able to get equipment and product out across to the farmers that need it?
Yeah, we got confirmation with the designation last week that the ag supply chain, including ag retailers and trucking, is essential. And that was a big deal to help provide folks with that extra confidence that the 2020 growing season was going to be able to proceed with as little interruption as possible. Now, I'm still hearing a lot of folks encouraging farmers who have the storage space, the capacity to go ahead and get all of their inputs through May on their farm.
Okay.
And that's to just try to be proactive for any kinks that may happen in the future. Ag retailers typically are going to have those orders ready to deliver to farmers. So farmers and retailers, be in touch to help the early parts of this growing season go as smoothly as possible.
And we have heard that there are some new rules that some of these retailers are putting into place where they're trying to keep, contact to a minimum, and the face-to-face interaction down to a minimum, but they're still delivering orders and dropping product where they can. What about for the folks that are driving it? We do have some it sounds like some approval to be driving some of this stuff around. Truckers are still hauling product.
Yes, to date, I have not heard, and other industry leaders have also shared they have not heard of any specific examples of logistical issues regarding ag retail and any timely deliveries being delayed. Now, one thing that has come up is because of social distancing, because of large groups not being able to gather, application training that are required for those state licensures, those have been either canceled or even tried to get move online. And we've also seen states act in going ahead and extending a waiver to pesticide applicators for 2020 that they will not have to update their documentation, in some cases through December 31st of this year.
That's interesting because we do know that a lot of those meetings were expected to take place.
Absolutely, and especially when you look at specific training such as for dicamba application, we're still hearing news that those exemptions are also being given.
Any problem at all getting product? Because we do know as this started over in China, China's a big producer of chemistries and molecules and things that we use on the farm. Any issue with getting that product back over here before spring starts?
I was on the phone with a manufacturer this morning, someone who does source product from China. They said they reacted 1 or 2 months ago in starting to change some of their global sourcing, and they are not reporting any immediate need for concern for 2020. They really want to share optimism that they want to stand side by side with the farmer, with the ag retail chain, in helping get this crop off to a very successful start.
All right, appreciate it. Margie Eckelkamp, editor of Ag Pro, and Joe Vaclavic with Standard Grain. Thank you both for joining us on this kind of inaugural run of just kind of keeping folks up to date of what's happening around the country as we deal with this coronavirus and how it could impact agriculture. Remember, if you'd like to keep and read and continue to follow along, agweb.com is where we're posting all of the updates, and you can go to agweb.com/coronavirus to read our coverage as it rolls in throughout the days and the weeks ahead. We're going to try to do this each and every day. We'll hopefully start to take some questions from some of you as we go forward. We're going to really be working to mix in a different group of experts each and every day to kind of talk about what's happening around not just farm country, but in our rural communities as well. So thank you for watching and stay with us. Remember, agweb.com for the very latest.